Hello and welcome to another episode of Soap Goes to the Oscars. This is episode 99. I'm recording on July 28th, 2025. And I watched the movie on July 27th. And the movie was The Wizard of Oz. It's available on Max. I watched it through Hulu. I saved it to my movies on there. So it was quote unquote free. And Gone with the Wind, I did the same thing, which is the winner of this year's Oscars. So this is the first year, and I'll announce later, but the first year where I paid nothing for any of the movies. Yay. So one significant thing about Wizard of Oz, which I think I mentioned on the first movie that I reviewed for 1939, is this was the first movie on this entire list of 610 movies that I had seen prior to starting this. The oldest movie that I had seen prior to starting this. The next oldest movie is Citizen Kane from 1941, then Casablanca from 1943. So, my older viewing was very minimal. So from 1927 to 1939, this was the only movie that I had seen. So we're starting to get into a place where I will have seen a few of these movies, and I am going to rewatch the ones that I have seen, even if I didn't like them the first time around. I'll give them another shot. Maybe I'll like them better. That said, Wizard of Oz is a 1939 American musical fantasy film produced by Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer, based on the 1900 novel The Wonderful Wizard of Oz by L. Frank Baum. It was primarily directed by Victor Fleming, who left production to take over the troubled Gone with the Wind. The funny thing was, a few days ago, I was talking about Gone with the Wind and how long it was. My wife asked who directed it, and I jokingly said, probably James Cameron or Peter Jackson or Christopher Nolan, because they all make really long movies nowadays. So obviously it wasn't any of them, but that was the joke. So I looked it up and found that Victor Fleming was listed on IMDb. And then when we started watching Wizard of Oz, I saw his name pop up again. I was like, what the hell? He directed both of these movies this year? So as I'm just discovering reading this, I guess there were issues with Gone with the Wind and he took over for that. So maybe stay tuned for the next episode and you'll hear more about that. It stars Judy Garland, Frank Morgan, Ray Bolger, Burt Lahr, Jack Haley, Billy Burke, and Margaret Hamilton. Noel Langley, Florence Ryerson, and Edgar Allan Wolfe received credit for the screenplay, while others made uncredited contributions. The music was composed by Harold Arlen and adapted by Herbert Stothart, with lyrics by Edgar Yip Harburg. The Wizard of Oz is celebrated for its use of Technicolor, fantasy storytelling, musical score, and memorable characters. It was a critical success and was nominated for 5 Academy Awards. An Academy Juvenile Award was presented to Judy Garland. It was on a preliminary list of submissions from the studios for an Academy Award for Cinematography Color, but it was not nominated. While the film was sufficiently popular at the box office, it failed to make a profit until its 1949 re-release, earning only $3 million on a $2.7 million budget, making it MGM's most expensive production at the time. Cinematography by Harold Rawson, edited by Blanche Sewell. Production company MGM, distributed by Loews Incorporated. Release dates August 10th, 1939 and August 25th, 1939. A runtime of 102 minutes. The 1956 television broadcast premiere of the film on CBS reintroduced the film to the public. According to the U.S. Library of Congress, it is the most seen film in movie history. In 1989, The Wizard of Oz was selected by the Library of Congress as one of the first 25 films for preservation in the United States National Film Registry. It is also one of the few films on UNESCO's Memory of the World International Register. The film was ranked second in Variety's inaugural 100 Greatest Movies of All Time list, published in 2022. It was among the top 10 in the 2005 British Film Institute list of 50 films to be seen by the age of 14, and is on the BFI's updated list of 50 films to be seen by the age of 15, released in May 2020. The Wizard of Oz has become the source of many quotes referenced in contemporary pop culture. The film frequently ranks on critics' list of the greatest films of all time, and is the most commercially successful adaptation of Baum's work. There is a lot on Wikipedia, and you should check it out. So it was nominated for Outstanding Production, obviously. Best Art Direction, Best Original Score, Herbert Stothart, which it won. Best Original Song, Over the Rainbow. Music by Harold Arlen. Lyrics by E.Y. Harburg, which it won. Best Special Effects, A. Arnold Gillespie and Douglas Shearer. And Academy Juvenile Award, which was honorary. Script went through several writers and revisions. Mervyn Leroy's assistant, William H. Cannon, had submitted a brief 4-page outline. Blah, blah, blah. Afterward, Leroy hired screenwriter. Was he a producer or something? Oh, yeah. Produced by Mervyn Leroy. Okay. Afterward, Leroy hired screenwriter Herman J. Mankiewicz, who delivered a 17-page draft of the Kansas scenes. A few weeks later, Mankiewicz delivered a further 56 pages. Leroy also hired Noel Langley, poet Ogden Nash, to write separate versions of the story. Leroy, after reviewing the footage and feeling Thorpe was rushing the production. So who's Thorpe? Okay. They completed the final draft of the script on October 8, 1938, following numerous rewrites. Others who contributed to the adaptation without credit include Irving Brecher, Herbert Fields, Arthur Freed, Yip Harburg, Samuel Hoffenstein, Jack Mintz, Sid Silvers, Richard Thorpe, George Cukor, and King Vidor. Only Langley, Ryerson, and Wolfe were credited for the script. Garland was to sing a brief reprise of Over the Rainbow while Dorothy was trapped in the witch's castle, but it was cut because it was considered too emotionally intense. Because Garland sang the reprise live on set, only the underscoring from the final edit survives. However, the on-set audio of the scene when it was originally filmed under Richard Thorpe. So Richard Thorpe began filming, and then Leroy, the producer, Mervyn Leroy, after reviewing the footage and feeling Thorpe was rushing the production, adversely affecting the actors' performances, had Thorpe replaced. During reorganization on the production, George Cukor temporarily took over under Leroy's guidance. Initially, the studio had made Garland wear a blonde wig and heavy baby doll makeup, and she played Dorothy in an exaggerated fashion. Cukor changed Garland's and Hamilton's makeup and costumes and told Garland to be herself. This meant that all the scenes of Garland and Hamilton had to be reshot. Cukor also suggested the studio cast Jack Haley on loan from Fox as the Tin Man. Cukor did not shoot any scenes for the film, but acted merely as a creative advisor to the troubled production. His prior commitment to direct Gone with the Wind required him to leave on November 3rd, 1938, when Victor Fleming assumed directorial responsibility. As director, Fleming chose not to shift the film from Cukor's creative realignment. Producer Leroy had already expressed his satisfaction with the film's new course. So, I mean, there's all kinds of stuff in here about the on-set treatment and abuse allegations for Judy Garland, special effects and makeup, music, songs. There's deleted songs. There's a lot of stuff in here. Probably worth a read, but I'm obviously not going to do it now. So one thing I got to say is I may have watched this. My youngest daughter watched this a lot when she was little, and my older daughter didn't want to watch it now because of that. But one thing I was thinking before we watched it was I don't know if I've ever seen this all the way through without ads. And I probably did when they were younger because we might have seen it on DVD or something. But when I was younger, it was on every Thanksgiving on TV. So there were ads. So probably until they were younger, I had never seen it without breaks or ads. And as I'm watching it and thinking about it now, I have my memories of it are in sections. And I don't know if that's the sections where there were ad breaks, but it seems like maybe that's the case. So this was, one of the few times that I've actually sat and watched it all the way through. And, as all of us that watched, my wife and my father, even who's 89, and my youngest daughter, well, it really holds up. It's still an amazing movie. And just the sets are fantastic. They're, and obviously it's been remastered and restored and stuff, but everything is just so bright and gorgeous. And, even the stuff where they're walking along and there's cornfields, and then in the background you see a painted mural of further cornfields or farmland or whatever. It still feels like it's a place. And I gave it 5 stars. It may not be the best movie on this list. It probably may not even be my favorite movie, but there's a nostalgia for it that I have because I grew up watching it long before it was available on VHS or DVD or any of that stuff. So it's just amazing, and many people may have seen this online, but there's the scene where Dorothy opens the door after she crashes in Oz, and it's black and white or sepia toned, and she opens the door, and Oz is outside in full color. And the way that they did that was they painted the set to be that sepia tone, and then they had her stand in with sort of a sepia toned dress and makeup on, go up and open the door, and you see Oz outside, and then Judy Garland in the blue dress comes walking over from the right hand side, and she's in color because she's wearing the normal dress and everything, and walks out, and it was all done in camera, and it's absolutely amazing to this day. It's 80 years later. Again, best picture, maybe not. I mean, it's the one that has withstood the test of time the best out of all these movies, on probably any of the movies on the list. But, it's still amazing. It doesn't need to have won best picture to be an amazing movie. And, definitely worth a watch now and then. I haven't seen it in a very long time all the way through, but it is definitely something to revisit. That was kind of all over the place. I'm going to see if I can edit that all together so it makes sense. But yeah, Wizard of Oz, still great, as if I needed to tell anybody. But next up is Gone with the Wind, which is the final movie of the 1939 Oscars. As of this recording, I've watched 1 hour of it, so I'm 1/4 of the way through. Good God. And I guess you'll just have to hear what I think of that next time. See you then.